The situation surrounding Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and attorney-author Victoria Burke has quickly evolved from what might have seemed like a high-profile celebrity legal dispute into something far more complex, consequential, and frankly uncomfortable. At the center of it all is a relatively new piece of legislation, California Assembly Bill 47.1, designed to protect survivors of sexual assault from retaliatory defamation lawsuits. But what should have been a story about legal protection and systemic reform is now becoming a case study in power, narrative control, and the risks of turning legal frameworks into public relations tools. To understand why this moment is so explosive, you have to start with Victoria Burke herself. She is not a celebrity, not a media personality, and not someone who sought public attention. She is a law-trained professional who, after experiencing a deeply traumatic sexual assault in 2019, found herself confronting a harsh and often overlooked reality within the legal system. Despite doing everything right, reporting the assault, cooperating with authorities, and following established legal channels, her case fell apart due to lost evidence. Blood samples disappeared, video footage vanished, and with that, the possibility of justice effectively collapsed. What followed was another layer of injustice that many survivors face but rarely discuss publicly: the fear of speaking out. Burke learned that even telling her own story could expose her to defamation lawsuits. This realization was not theoretical. It was grounded in a growing trend that had emerged in the wake of the Me Too movement. Individuals accused of misconduct, often with greater financial resources, began filing defamation suits against their accusers. These cases were not always about winning on merit, but about exhausting the accuser emotionally and financially into silence. Burke responded not with silence but with action. Drawing on her legal training and prior experience working on legislative drafts, she spent approximately 18 months researching, writing, and refining what would become Assembly Bill 47.1. She collaborated with advocacy groups and organizations such as the ACLU to ensure that the law struck a balance, protecting survivors from retaliatory lawsuits while preserving the legal rights of those who are falsely accused. Notably, she cited the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard as an example of how the law would still allow a defamation claim to succeed if actual malice could be proven. The bill passed in California in 2022 and has since been quietly introduced in multiple states. Burke's strategy was deliberate: keep the effort low profile to avoid politicization or organized opposition. And for a time it worked. The law expanded steadily, largely under the radar, maintaining its focus on survivor protection without becoming a flashpoint in broader cultural debates. That trajectory changed dramatically when Blake Lively's legal team began using AB 47.1 as a cornerstone of her case against Justin Baldoni. On its face, this made sense. The law exists precisely for situations where individuals claim they are being targeted with retaliatory legal action. But what followed, according to Burke, went far beyond simple legal application. Burke has publicly stated that Lively's legal team contacted her with intentions not just to use the law, but to elevate it nationally, effectively turning it into a broader campaign. The issue was not the goal itself. Burke was already working toward national expansion, but the manner in which it was approached. According to her account, Lively's team moved forward without properly coordinating with her, despite her being the original architect of the legislation. More concerning are Burke's claims that Lively's attorneys engaged in ongoing meetings with advocacy groups, meetings Burke herself was not included in, where portions of the bill were being redrafted. The most controversial element, according to Burke, was the addition of language that appeared to offer protections not to survivors, but to attorneys. This distinction is critical. The entire philosophical foundation of AB 47.1 is centered on survivor protection, introducing provisions that benefit legal professionals' risks, altering both the intent and perception of the law. Burke reportedly requested to review and remove this language, emphasizing that attorneys already have access to professional protections such as insurance and legal safeguards. Her concern was not only about legal integrity, but about maintaining the moral clarity of the bill. When a law designed to protect vulnerable individuals is seen as serving institutional or professional interests, it can undermine public trust and invite opposition. The broader implications of these allegations are significant. If Burke's account is accurate, it suggests a scenario where a high-profile legal team engaged in shaping legislation behind the scenes without fully involving its original author. Whether this was done intentionally or as a byproduct of aggressive legal strategy, the optics are undeniably problematic. Compounding the issue is the role of media and public perception. As Burke began speaking out, most notably in an interview with Megyn Kelly, attention shifted toward the internal dynamics of the bill's evolution. However, this attention has been inconsistent, often competing with unrelated celebrity coverage. For example, concurrent media focus on Lively's personal life, including social media posts featuring Ryan Reynolds, has arguably diluted the visibility of the more substantive legal concerns. This raises an uncomfortable but important question. To what extent is narrative management influencing public understanding of the case? In high-profile disputes, especially those involving celebrities, strategic communication is almost inevitable. Public relations efforts aim to shape perception, maintain support, and mitigate reputational damage. However, when such strategies intersect with legal frameworks, particularly those designed to address systemic injustice, the stakes become much higher. Burke herself has articulated this concern clearly. She has described the situation as her work being transformed into a PR redemption tool, a phrase that carries significant weight. It suggests that the law is being used not only as a legal shield, but as part of a broader effort to control public narrative. Whether or not that characterization is entirely fair, it underscores the tension between legal advocacy and image management. Another critical dimension of this situation is its potential impact on the future of AB 47.1. The law's success thus far has been partly due to its low-profile implementation. By avoiding widespread attention, it has been able to pass in multiple jurisdictions without becoming entangled in partisan or cultural conflicts. Now, however, it is directly linked to a highly polarizing celebrity case. This visibility could have unintended consequences. Opponents of the law may seize upon the controversy to challenge its validity or intent. If courts scrutinize its application in Lively's case and find issues, whether constitutional or procedural, it could set precedents that affect its viability elsewhere. Even the perception that the law is being misused could slow or halt its adoption in other states. There is also the question of accountability within Lively's legal team. If Burke's claims are accurate, it remains unclear whether Lively herself was fully aware of the behind-the-scenes developments. This ambiguity creates two equally troubling possibilities. Either Lively was directly involved in decisions that sidelined the law's author and altered its language, or her legal team acted independently in ways that expose her to reputational and strategic risk. Neither scenario is particularly reassuring. In the first, it suggests a willingness to prioritize legal advantage and public image over collaborative integrity. In the second, it raises concerns about oversight and alignment within her legal representation. For any litigant, especially one in such a high-profile case, trust and coordination with legal counsel are essential. Ultimately, what makes this situation so striking is how avoidable it appears to have been. Burke did not oppose Lively using the law. She did not demand exclusivity or control over its public discussion. Her requests were relatively straightforward. Maintain communication, respect the original intent of the legislation, and avoid turning it into a vehicle for personal branding. These are not unreasonable expectations, particularly given her role as the bill's creator.